If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I'm clearly an axe collector, and if you found your way to this channel, chances are you might be too, or you at least enjoy the hobby. So I figured an interesting video would maybe be talking about one of my collections, which is boys' axes. It's one of my favorite types of axes. It's not really a pattern; it's more like a size range. So um, most of these are Dayton patterns, but we'll see some variances within here as I show you them. But I really like the size. It's around a 2.5 pound, 2 1/4 head, give or take a little bit. On usually like a 26 to 28 inch handle. Might be obviously with like most other things, there's some variance in that, but usually that's the general size range of what you'd consider a boy's axe. They go by different names. Some people call them boys' axes. Some people call them half axes. Some people call them pulpwood axes. Really, they're all the same thing. It's a light axe that's made for various purposes. Limbing up when after you've already felled a tree, and you're kind of limbing it up, getting it ready to before bucking it up. Camping, just clearing some trails, like clearing trails. It's not really a designated larger felling axe, though it can be pushed into service for that for sure. But you do sacrifice a bit on head weight with that, so you're not going to get as much work done. Same with bit size, depending on the pattern. But yeah, so my two most used boys axes are these two right here. The one I've had the longest is this one here. It's modified, very clearly heavily modified, I'd say. But it's a council tool boys axe. So it's a Dayton pattern. That's one that I got years ago. That's the one that actually kind of got me into axe collecting, axe rehanging. So when I picked it up or ordered it online, it came to me looking almost exactly like this one here. So the red paint, roughly that same, bit profile and geometry and all that. Pretty similar handle too. So yeah, all rights, a very usable, serviceable axe. These come with, if you're not familiar, come with an aluminum wedge in the center. Not really a big fan of that, but hey, it seems to work for the most part, most of the time. So anyways, back to the story on this one. So I picked it up because I was looking to have a small axe for going, just kind of camping and splitting some, kindling and stuff like that around the campfire. Car camping stuff, really. So I picked that up, used it, ended up letting a family member borrow it. The handle got busted. So then I found myself in the predicament of like, well, what do you do with a broken axe handle? This is how my venture into the hobby. So obviously I didn't want to, I just had bought this axe recently. I didn't want to buy a whole new axe. So I started looking up how to replace, an axe handle. I ended up ordering a replacement handle from, I think it was like Bailey's Woodworking or Wood Forestry Supplies or whatever online. Ended up getting a council tool replacement handle. Getting the old one out and rehanging it. But before I rehung it, I decided to modify it a little bit. So what I ended up doing was, it started out as a standard Dayton pattern. So I obviously put this beard into it, clean up the pole because that had some damage on it at that point. Kind of ground the paint off, blued it, and took that top of the axe, created it pretty flat. It ended up coming out really pretty similar to their council tools. Can't remember what they're like, the Woodcraft axe or something like that. I might actually done these modifications long before they came out with that pattern, but because my idea behind it is I wanted to have a bigger beard for kind of choking up on it and carving a little bit, or push cutting through some small limbs and stuff like that. So yeah, I like how it came out. I think it's cool. It was a long time ago. I think I could probably do a better job on those same modifications now, but uh, back when I did it, yeah, I think it came out good. The hang was all right for back then. Uh, it really didn't take much fitting because it was a console tool replacement handle and a console tool head, so it really was minimal fitting. So kind of just slipped right in, and I drove what appears to be an Applewood wedge. I did it a long time ago, so I don't really remember, but the wedge is a little bit thin. Um, but it's held up for over 10 years now. So, yeah, I'm very happy with it. And it's one of my favorite axes. I ended up making just mask for it, sheath for it. So, and before I had done the plum rafting pattern, this was the axe that rode in my truck all the time. Since then, while this was riding in my truck, I wanted another axe to kind of keep in the garage for use around the house and in the yard and stuff like that. And that's when I put this one together. So it is a Gamble's Expert, standard quality. Put a really nice edge on that. Very happy with it. It's also a Dayton pattern. And this one here is a Do It Best handle. It's just one of the ones that one of the local hardware stores had. But as far as like picking up a handle from a local hardware store, I actually like the Do It Best brand ones. Like this one's got really good grain, run out or lack of. Good grain orientation if you care about that. Yeah, decently generous palm swell, especially for a boy's axe. You don't do anything too crazy with it, but definitely enough to kind of give it that vintagey shape. But yeah, so this is the one that I use a lot around the house, in the yard. I still need to make a mask for it. I think I'll probably use it a lot more if I were to do that. I've got a lot more axes than I've made masks for. It's kind of a backlogged project. Someday. But yeah, that's another one that I really enjoyed using. I think both of those this one's a little lighter now. It's probably like 2-ish pounds, maybe a little less, just under. I think when these ones come, they're 2.25. But yeah, this one started off life looking exactly like this. So, one of the other console tool variants that I picked up a while back was their Forest Service edition boys axe. I believe Console Tool used a slightly different steel with this one. I can't remember what steel it is. I know it's supposed to be a little bit higher carbon content than their standard ones. I haven't really used this one much to tell that big of a difference. Because as I started getting into this, axe collecting, I started collecting axes a lot quicker than I was really, using them, and still do. Obviously, these are way more axes than one person's reasonably going to use all the time, but it's a hobby. That's why it's collecting. So this one's supposed to have like a little bit better steel. These ones, they have decent edge retention. They're a little bit on the soft side, but I would rather have it be a little bit on the soft side and easy to sharpen out a rolled edge than a full-blown chip. Probably could be a little bit harder, but yeah, it's very serviceable. One of the other ones in the collection here, I showed it in one of my other national pattern videos, but it's a Plum National boys axe. This one here is on an original handle. This is from the Permabond era. So basically it's a slightly undersized tongue, and they fill the eye with epoxy. Not my favorite thing, but it's it's held up over the years, and it's kind of cool that's on the original handle. So that was pretty neat. Still like the national patterns a lot in general, so kind of cool to have one on the original handle, especially with the Boys Axe. So then a good transition into that would be my user national pattern Boys Axe. I still need to put a better edge on this one, sharpen a little deeper. It's really thick behind the edge right here. I got to kind of lay that grind down back there. It'll make it a lot more, perform a lot better, because it's really kind of in a obtuse edge right now. So that's one of the reasons I haven't used this one too much, and I usually tend to grab, this one or the Gambles over it, because this one's, it's fine for splitting. Like splitting kindling, it really does pretty well, but actual chopping, it's kind of sticky. It needs to get thinned down a bit. So on the tangent of plums, I've got a couple other in the collection here. So the first one I had picked up was this one. This is another one that's really all original. Super clean stamp. Some of that original sticker. It'll focus. No pull damage, to speak of, really. Decent amount of the original paint. Original handle. Some of that original warning label sticker on it. That classic plum red. I really do enjoy that color. Again, this is from the Permabond era. So that's a fun one. That's one I don't really use, obviously, just because it is so original, and I've got a lot of other options. And then shortly after I had picked up that one, this one came up for sale on eBay. This is one that had one of the, I think it was in one of my Followed Me Home videos. It was one that I was watching. I didn't really need another plum Boys Axe, but it was a super cheap deal on it, and for some reason, no one was bidding on it, so I threw out a very low bid and ended up getting it. And it came with a leather sheath too, or mask, so it's kind of neat. I haven't done anything with this one. I haven't cleaned it up, haven't touched it. The head is super original and clean. Well, it's it's rusty, but it's not marked up. It's not beat up. It's not abused. That stamp is nice and deep. A lot of that original plum sticker on it. The pull is really unabused. A lot of that original black paint. But it's got some heavy overstrike damage. And the handle's kind of cracked and weathered and rotted. So my guess is probably fairly early on into this axe's life, someone had, overstruck it and took that big chunk out and then just kind of set it aside and retired it. Which, unfortunate for them, but good for me because I got a really clean head. I haven't done anything with this one yet either, too, because it is, again, it's that Permabond. So it's a pain to get out. It's a giant pain to get out, but doable. Eventually, I'll probably end up pulling this handle, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys would do with it. I still haven't decided. Keeping it just original and how it is, or pulling the handle from it, trying to kind of preserve the sticker and hanging it on a new one, or would you take the sticker off too, since you're already removing it from the handle? I don't know. I've got kind of two schools of thought on it. Is keeping it as original as possible because I do have a ton of other users, or pulling the handle and turning it into something that's usable but still just in really good condition. I don't know. I could be persuaded either way. So I think that leaves the only one we haven't talked about is this one right here. This one is a Craftsman. So it's a double oval Craftsman. I haven't cleaned this one up yet either. I believe this was also in one of my Followed Me Home videos. I picked this one up at, I think, Balkville, Madison Balkville Antique Festival up here in upstate New York. So it's a cool one. I really like the double oval Craftsman stamp. I think it's super cool. One of my favorite stamps from Craftsman. The handle on it is very, very warped. Kind of sight down it, you can see it's pretty terrible. Which is a shame, because if it wasn't for the warping, it would be a nice vintage handle. Not the original handle, but a nice vintage replacement. So eventually I'll pull this one, save the handle, try to straighten it, and probably hang this head on a different handle. My plan is to actually give this one to my son once he gets old enough, so make him a boy's axe out of it. So that'll be a good one to build it in the future at some point. So yeah, so that's just a brief overview of my boys axe collection. I only covered the ones that are actually hung on handles. I've got a lot more boys axe size heads, but I don't really consider those boys axes yet, because you could throw them on a shorter handle, use it as a house axe, or even shorter handle and just be a heavy hatchet. So it's kind of transitions one of the reasons why I like the size head too. It's pretty versatile, just depending on how long of a handle you throw it on. But longer handles, I usually tend towards the 28 inch. Even with full size axes, I like the 28 inch too. 26 to 31, 32 inch range is really where I like most of them to sit. But I'm not overly tall, so that's what's comfortable for me. Whatever works for you works for you. So yeah. Let me know if you guys have any boys axes, if you have any favorite boys axes and what they are, and let me know what you do with this plum here. I don't know. Such a clean head, or neat head. But that overstrike. So yeah, all right, I'm rambling at this point. So if you stuck through, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And have a good day.